What's going on, guys? My name is Richard, and welcome to this week's weekly trade summary. So overall, I increased my exposure this week as growth stocks were performing well, and in this video, we'll go through all the trades I did, my buys and sells, and I'll talk about kind of what I was seeing as I was buying, and if I sold, what was the reason. If you enjoy my analysis, please go ahead and leave a like down below on the video, and subscribe if you are new. So starting these off, let's talk about apps, and I put this on Friday as it broke above this short-term shelf here, this pivot, which I was using at 38.33, and also had a teal dot and green dot on that day. And overall, looking at the price pattern, I like how it's tightening up a little bit on the right-hand side. It's right above a prior all-time high, this green line right here. And let's talk about this day right here, this Wednesday, because this could be viewed as both a negative and a positive. A negative because it was a downside reversal on very high volume, but also a lot of people were probably shaken out on this day because they were trying to buy the breakout, and then it decreased about 11-12%. So it probably shook out a lot of retail buyers, which is good for the potential success of this breakout this time around. And looking at this breakout, I would like to see higher volume here. It is a little bit below average volume at this time. So hopefully it follows through next week and we see that volume come in and we have a challenge of these all-time highs. But overall, the RS line is going the right way. It's right near these peaks right here. And overall, this is one of the strongest stocks in the market. And I like the reversal action on this day. Even though it was on high volume and a down day, you do see it finish well off the lows. And then you have a nice rip to all-time highs. And then where you would expect it to find resistance, it drops back and tightens up again on the right-hand side. So it looks pretty good overall. Next up, we've got NVCR, which I also bought on this Friday as it broke above these two kind of cheat entries. One at the pivot of this day at 126.37, and then this one at around 128.72. So you can see it opens right above this pivot, so you couldn't use that. And then I was watching very quickly to see how it was reacting, and I saw that the volume buzz right at the open was over 1,000%, which is very significant, and I knew that was likely to break out above these pivots. So I was looking for an entry, and I pulled the trigger, I think, about 3 minutes after the bell. You can see it really shot up here after it kind of took out this high, and I was a little bit late on my entry, but it was also just shooting up very, very quickly. So overall, it broke out and then kind of consolidated for the rest of the day and did eventually decrease a little bit. But overall, it looks pretty strong. And looking at this high, it finished right above this resistance level, which is a positive. And I love the volume coming in after this tightness. And looking at the overall price structure, you can see a strong uptrend. It's right at all-time highs. Then you can see it pull back in an orderly fashion, not really high volume here to the 50-day moving average. It had a nice reversal bar on this day, the 3rd, and then it moved up and started coiling tighter and tighter and formed these pivots right here. So overall, I really like the look of this setup, and hopefully it challenges all-time highs early next week. So moving on to Snap, this was my mistake for the week. I actually sold on this Monday, and let's go in a little bit closer here. So overall, I bought as it broke above this high and a teal dot setup, and then you can see it kind of had an inside day on this Friday, but then it opened all the way down here and then tried to move up and then faded all the way back to the end of the day. And after it moved up above this high right here, I had moved up my stop a little bit too aggressively to about the open at 39.05, and I was stopped out at the end of the day. So I think overall, I moved up my stop a little bit too aggressively. And I also should have bought it back on the green dot setup or teal dot setup next week, especially considering there's a nice kind of risk reward here, because you can see this is about 5% to the overall low of this consolidation. So this would have been a really good setup, and I should have bought it back, especially because I sold on this day. And overall, you've got nice closes on Thursday and Friday, and it looks like it should challenge these all-time highs relatively soon. So that was my mess up for this week, and definitely a good trade to learn from, especially because I didn't buy it back, which is against my rules. Next up, we've got Net, and overall I bought it on this Tuesday after a nice reversal bar the day prior, and as it challenged this pivot, these highs right here at 66.08, and I bought it at 66.19. And so far, it's pretty much just going sideways, although it did try to move up on Friday before kind of fading toward the end of the day. So overall, not much going on, but overall, this is a very strong stock. You can see the RS line is in a nice uptrend here after a nice jump after this gap up on volume. So moving on, we've got AMD, and I started my initial position on this day, added this Friday, and then I added once again on this nice action here, the green dot versus the 50-day moving average. And so far, it's done quite well. It pulled back for 2 days, formed another little pivot here at 84.81, and then it broke out above the downward trend line here, and then had a nice consolidation day on this Friday. Although it was a little bit of a downside reversal, it didn't kind of pierce the 50% of this bar here, and it was on lower volume. So far, nice action here, and hopefully it challenges the standard pivot of the double bottom base here at 88.72. So moving on, we've got RKT, and this was a stop loss hit for me. And overall, I tried it as it moved above this short-term pivot at 22.41. And then you can see the next day, it tried to move up, but faded towards the end of the day. And that kind of downward momentum carried on into the next day, where I ended up getting stopped out as it pierced the 50-day moving average here. And overall, it's still kind of just fading here, but could form up and have this be another potential entry above 22.99. And overall, this is a promising new IPO with great earnings and sales. So I'll be watching this pretty closely. So lastly, we've got NVDA, and I tried this after they reported earnings, and I bought at 538.27, which was pretty much the high of the day on the teal dot. But I really like the risk reward entry because my stop loss is right below the low of this bar right here at about 521. But on this Friday, I did end up selling 2/3 of my position because it kind of broke my expectations after this nice close on higher volume. I wanted it to continue and challenge this pivot where I would have added more. This was just a starter position. And at this moment, my stop is right below this low right here. So about at 521. So the rest of the 1/3 star position is on pretty thin ice. But overall, I like the overall price pattern. It's tightened up nicely on the right-hand side. Great earnings and sales. And I'll look to add as it breaks through this pivot right here. So that is a run through of my trades from this past week. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know down below in the comment section. And other than that, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in future videos.